近年来，通讯产业对于我国经济成长扮演非常关键的重要角色。那么现阶段，我们已经获得了国际瞩目的傲人成就，这也是因为政府以及民间能够通力合作。那么就如同刚才柯处长所言经济部工业局长期以来扮演国内产业的火车头，并且指导经济部通讯产业发展推动小组，协助国内外各工协会以及业者进行能量的整合，共同推动物联网产业的发展。此举除了可以协助国内的业者尽早掌握全球物联网的趋势以及脉动之外，更重要的是可以为我们创造一个更宽广的蓝海发展市场。ICT industry plays a key role in Taiwan's economic development. One key success factor we have enjoyed is the close collaboration between the government and the private sector. As Mr. Ke has so aptly pointed out, IDB's strong leadership is imperative in coordinating resources from different trade associations and companies and formulating a comprehensive strategy to create a blue ocean for Taiwan's IoT businesses. Now we are ready to move on to the first presentation of the day. 接下来我们要开始进入本次大会的主题，正式开始第一场发表。It is our great honor to welcome Partner Group Program Manager at Microsoft and OCF Board Director, Dr. Matthew Perry, to give an overview of the OCF, its goals, activities, and accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Perry. 请热烈掌声欢迎 Dr. Matthew Perry, OCF 董事会代表，微软公司伙伴团体计划经理。
So while they're setting this up, I just wanted to thank Dr. Ko. Thank you very much, and Gina, for a nice introduction. It's great to be here today, and so we're all relaxed and everything. How is everybody after lunch? Everybody good? Enjoy the box lunch? Yeah, everybody likes a free lunch. And see if there's while they're setting up, since we're talking about the Open Connectivity Foundation, and I know there's many internet standards out there that people are considering, I'm curious, let's take a quick poll, also we'll get our blood rushing a little bit. How many people here are currently an OCF member? I am? Okay. About a third or so. There you go. How many people are considering joining OCF? Couple. By the end of my presentation, we're going to get more up there, I hope. All right. And I'm just curious because there are so many different standards, and one of the goals of OCF is to connect to many of them through compatibility. I'm just curious how many here are members of the All-Seen Alliance, which is a competitive alternative out there. I am. We're still a member. Microsoft has invested in that for the last year. For sure. And I'm sure there's a few people here that are HomeKit and Brillo Weave, etc. A lot of these are trying to accomplish some similar goals, but I believe that the Open Connectivity Foundation has a broader view of openness and collaboration, not only across companies and technologies, but also across industries, which we feel is very important. So quickly before I go on here, just a little background on myself. So I am a board member of the Open Connectivity Foundation, and I was actually one of the few folks that were really driving to take the best of what was the Open Interconnect Consortium, and some of us from the All-Seen Alliance, where we all have the same goal that we want to establish the one open and free IoT standard by which companies and industries and application developers and things or devices makers all over the world, and particularly here in Taiwan, since we're here, to all be aligned. For my day job, I'm in the Microsoft organization, and specifically, I'm in the Windows and Devices group. Within that group, I'm responsible for all of our IHV ecosystem, including silicon providers, many of you out here that build devices, component manufacturers, and I also drive our IoT ecosystem. So one of the things I want to do in my presentation is, one, be a representative of the board of the OCF, but also to tell you why a Microsoft, who in the past history, way past, we were a much more closed ecosystem, and why we've embraced openness and international standards to drive IoT, because that'll benefit all of our businesses. Let's see here. All right, so that's not working, but we have alternatives. I'm sure that was the this is a Windows XP device, and this is one of the reasons all of you must upgrade to Windows 10. Please do, because that won't happen. Also, apologize for a little bit of typeface mangling there. It's an XP thing. Please upgrade. All right, so just a little bit about Microsoft. I'm not here to talk a lot about Microsoft, but I thought I'd put it in a context on why we've invested so much here. And actually, me personally, I've been driving within Microsoft our focus and our investment to develop open standards that allow all of our devices and services to connect to many of your devices and services. Me personally, I've been driving this for 2.5 years. And so, one, from an IoT perspective, we believe that Windows 10 IoT Core, which is our offering for IoT devices, is optimized for IoT because of the values that people place on Windows and our investments in security, device management, etc. We have great assets such as Cortana that talk to the cloud. They do a lot of interesting intelligence, and is one little instantiation of a service to the back end, but also something that we're taking to other platforms. And I want to mention here that I am in the Windows organization, and one of the things we did as part of Windows 10 that was released last summer is that we wanted to make an operating system that would allow scalability across a wide variety of devices. So we've taken our former Xbox operating system, Windows Phone, some of our embedded. We put them all together, and the core features of the operating system we call one core. The desire to allow easy connectivity to a wide variety of IoT devices, we decided to put that engine within our one core device. So as of recently, we announced there's 300 million Windows 10 devices. Every single one of those are IoT enabled right now, although right now it's with the all-join technology from Allseeing, and our goal is to take that forward and make it all OCF 1.1 compliant when that comes out later in the year. We'll talk about it in a second. So from a Microsoft perspective, this is core technology that we believe is extremely important, not only for our products, but for all the products you're building, whether they run on Windows or they run on Linux or OpenRTOS or whatever the operating system of choice is. Secondly, Microsoft has a services organization and a cloud business, and we believe that Microsoft Azure platform is the best companion for clouds for IoT. They have a lot of great services and analytic capability. They also focus on some of the things Windows has, which is very, very strong security, enterprise security, the ability to onboard people very quickly. And so, last kind of Microsoft, plug here, we'd love you to build with Windows 10 IoT Core and use Azure. But hey, if you want to use other operating systems, of course you have the freedom to do so. And I'm sure our team in Azure would love to talk to you about doing a cloud offering with an alternate operating system, just as the Windows organization would be happy to work with other clouds. But this work that we're doing internally on Microsoft has just made it so apparent how much we need to have optimized connectivity, be able to control and orchestrate devices from any developer. And making this even more complex outside of what we're dealing with and all the companies out here deciding which internet standards to select, Microsoft's belief and certainly OCF's belief that it's equally important that industries also use the same type of standards so that they're not segmented into, there's a home standard and then there's a factory floor standard of how devices connect, or smart cities. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, we believe consumers or in the enterprises there is value and a desire for these different industries to connect. I mean, I could think of my smart home wanting to connect to smart health to get my medical records, or a smart transportation, semi-autonomous vehicle, being able to communicate with the smart cities grid to understand, where traffic patterns are or where lights are out, etc. It's really important to connect to the most people possible. Reminds me of Robert McAfee, or let's see, I can't remember his name right now. Metcalf, or Metcalf. He's the father of Ethernet, and he's known for Metcalf's law, which is basically the value of the network is proportional to the number of nodes in that system squared. And not that we're in a math class here, but in general, there is value, increased value in connecting more things together. And it's one of the things that, again, from the OCF perspective, it's very important that we're touching multiple industries. We certainly are doing work on home, we're doing work on industrial, I know we're looking at some medical. And one of the things we're looking for as we're trying to build this organization out, of which we have 194 companies to date, and looking to grow more, is people with different backgrounds and experiences in different industries to come on in, not only just to join, but to participate and help drive the effort. I mean, it's one of the things we're finding right now as Microsoft and other companies have joined, is that we're kind of taking the best of what people are bringing and trying to create a standard that really hits the needs of a wide audience. So I wanted just to funnel down a little bit just to show some of the challenges that we face when we're trying to work a standard like an OCF across a wide variety of devices, industries, operating systems, etc. Here we have a home, it could be my home based on the number of speakers I see here. I love listening to audio all over the place. There's technology built right here in Taiwan that allows me to enjoy my music all the way through the home from a certain vendor. There's certainly some from other vendors. Unfortunately, a lot of times they don't talk together. And so it's very difficult to get those connected. You have to be real techie to get them to go. And certainly we're not at that time where I have one app on my Windows phone would be the right answer, or Android phone or whatever, to be able to talk to all of my audio devices, my refrigerator, and anything else that's going on. This is a real challenge. Making that even a bigger challenge is a lot of these devices have their own pipeline to the cloud. They have their own independent cloud. And so you have a lot of end-to-end solutions from a particular manufacturer, or they may have partnered with somebody else. That's not a very open situation. You know, I look back when we were talking about the whole, the different industries and Metcalf's law. It just reminds me that, you know, back when in the 90s when the internet was coming out, there was, you know, approximately plus or minus 1 billion PCs that added the value of the internet at that time. And one of the ways they're able to achieve interoperability is they standardize on certain things like IP, HTML, HML, all these standards, so that people could actually talk to one another. You know, in the 2000s, that number has increased with the introduction of smartphones. There are literally single-digit billions of people that are on on networks and are ed nodes. And again, according to the Metcalf's law, that's a squared response, or a squared correlation to the value. And as we're going to IoT, coming in up to 2020, you'll see, you know, there are literally small tens of billions of devices out there. Well, we want to take a full advantage of those, of the value of connecting all those things together. And that'll only work by coming up with standards that have been tried and true in the past and are tried and true going forward. And the thing that is limiting, I believe, the adoption of some of these standards, and more importantly, you know, a lot of you out there, how many out there build devices, hardware devices that you sell to OEMs, ODMs, to whatever, or some? I see a couple. You know, one of the things I've heard when I visit Taiwan, as I do so frequently, is there's a lot of companies that aren't sure which one to implement because there are so many to choose from. Our job at OCF is to make that answer very easy by being inclusive in as many people as possible and providing technology that connects to a wide variety of standards to create the one open and free standard that you can build with. So on the fragmentation, we believe the answer is OCF, as I just said, the Open Connectivity Foundation. You see some nice quotes here. I like particularly the Fortune quote because they're just amazed that 5 big companies were able to agree on anything outside of just lunch, let alone the ability to you know, have our own views of how we would like to see technology used, how we'd like it to be deployed, the type of industries we might particularly want to address, getting everybody together and taking a step back and saying, you know what is best for the industry, and to get scalability, because what's best for scalability in industry is benefits all of us, as it was shown back in the internet era. So we have a Like I said, we have 194 companies that are members of the OCF today. Many of you in Taiwan are members already. We appreciate that. I know some of you are leaning in and helping, and we would encourage any member that's already a member, please contribute more and more and more, and I'll show you opportunities to do that going forward. It's one thing to join, it's another thing to really push your desires and your experience into the process that will get us even stronger standard by which others will want to follow and participate in. So what's the vision of OCF? As I said, there was a few of us that talked to a few of the larger companies of the former OIC in terms of what do we want in this new organization. Well, we'd like to take the best of what had made OIC successful and some of the technology and items that made others more successful. And the first thing is we want it to be open. You know, the whole point of this, it would have been very easy for my company to build a closed system. We have Azure, we have Windows, we could have made a one stack and not let anybody else in. We would have had probably a limited amount of success, but nowhere near the scalability that we want. We want it to be an open process by which all members can participate in different levels, and we have abilities that will be described later by Dave. I think you're talking about the various membership levels that allow different levels of participation. But it's very important to be open as opposed to some of the competitive offerings out there which are a little bit more verticalized based on one company's beliefs. While they might take input, it's still one company. This is a band of many companies working together. Next, we want it to be free. You know, hey, we all want to make money, I understand, and I understand there's attractions to charging a license fee. That's a nice business model for certain companies. But, you know, the internet wasn't built on a whole licensing model where everybody had to pay everybody different amounts of money. This absolutely, we believe, should be free, so you can choose to implement as long as you sign the terms and conditions of the OCF bylaws and enjoy the joint technology we've all invested in a way that financially benefits your company. Third, we want this to be seamless, and by seamless, we want freedom of choice out there so that you don't have to think, do I do the Microsoft thing with Windows? Do I have to have that versus AWS cloud? Those type of decisions being forced into certain paths don't lend itself to scalability. What we want is for developers or application developers or people doing technology to not have to worry about which operating system is on. Now, of course, we would love for that to be Windows, but Windows doesn't fit everywhere. There's a wide variety of OSs, clouds, and technologies that you want to put together. So one of our absolute goals is to not lock people into certain vendors. We want it to be open. We also want to be technology agnostic. You know, it's very easy when you form a foundation like we have with OCF, and each of our companies has particular intrinsic biases of the type of connectivity framework on the electrical physical layer that we would like, whether it's Ethernet or WiGig or Wi-Fi or ABC. We strive very hard to abstract that out, so as long as it adheres to some of the specifications, to specifications that we'll put out, which we'll talk about in a second. Kind of any physical layer could be supported. And I think it's really important because we're investing in the long term, and what might be popular today on a wireless or wire technology will change over time. We want that flexibility as part of OCF. Two, we want fair and accessible. We want fairness and accessibility. And what we mean by that is a big part of OCF is our belief in the value of open source software. And Microsoft, which you would not consider to be a big open source software company, we've also invested in open source, and particularly for this type of technology where the stuff that's inside of our one core that I mentioned today that does some of these features and functions for Allsing, we've contributed that to the open source. We think it's a very important way for many people to contribute to the overall standard. And you'll see how open source fits in with the specification process that we're talking about in OCF. I alluded to earlier, it's not obvious to all people doing work on IoT where they get really focused on M2M for machine-to-machine or for consumer where there might be a HomeKit or anything else. We're kind of looking for that one kit, that thing that allows multiple industries to communicate together at a level that accretes value for all of us and allows us to take advantage of that great network effect that you get. It's also representative in the OCF, where we have multiple different working groups that are driving different industries. And at the board level, we discuss this all the time, where some of us might be prioritizing consumer first, or some of us might be doing industrial first. What's been interesting is watching the subject matter experts at the companies that have strong foothold in certain industries coming and providing their input on the technology we're investing in, so we get kind of a best of all worlds, so that our security models will hold up to a wide variety of industries and implementations. Next, a security for all of us and all the companies involved, and I'm sure for all of you out there, is very, very important. And so as we come up with specifications and open source projects that allow devices to connect to one another, security is a basis by which we invest to ensure, as best of our ability, to make the communication between devices, between clouds and devices, as secure as possible. And lastly, one of the things that for myself personally and others that have been involved in industry standards before, whether it be in the PC industry or industrial or otherwise, is it really helps to, especially when you have a lot of strong companies that have opinions and you have a diversity of members that can participate in open source projects. It's really important to have structure around what we do, so that we can be anytime the teams get together, we have the ability of working well together. We certainly share our opinions, and there's certainly, as you would hope, some heated discussions on occasion where everybody's opinions are different. The goal here is to find the best for as many of the constituents of OCF as possible, and also for those that have not implemented OCF that we can support through some of our technology. So that was the vision. I'm sure a lot of that was the vision of OIC. It certainly was a lot of the vision we were investing in as part of our alternative technologies that we were. But we wanted to make sure that was up front when we were deciding to form this new group, that these were kind of our core tenets that we wanted to continue forward on and use as our anchor. And so what is the OCF approach? So this is a specification first organization. We feel that is really important to provide the structure that allows great innovation, but also allows us to put boxes around some of our technologies and aspirations, so that it's controllable from the standpoint of as input from everybody in OCF, but it's also implementable, and we don't have a chaotic approach. So, and this is a tried and true process and methodology for key standard bodies around the world. And I do know that there are people out there that go, wow, that having specs and different people have different inputs into the specs and maybe different amounts of influence, and we find that maybe not as nimble as other techniques, which is why we augment our specification process with open source projects that we work with the Linux Foundation on. The one that we're investing in now is IoTivity. There, it's open source. People contribute all the code they want. They can get that for a royalty-free license as long as they've signed to the terms and conditions. And we intend for the open source efforts to implement what the specifications have said, and we want to particularly work as an organization on a reference specification that outlines or implements the foundation of OCF, but also, and equally important, we want to provide base level translation services for those protocols and internet standards that have not quite seen the way yet to join the fold in OCF. It's really important for us to be investing in OCF, but also understanding there are different opinions out there in the industry, and there's going to be different standards, and we want to provide support of as many of those as possible, and we'll show you some of that here coming forward, and I believe there's other discussions with people far smarter than me that will go into more detail on that. And then lastly, The key to a great standard in my mind is having a fantastic certification program that hopefully isn't that much of a burden, but the end benefit is if you buy a device from Titleist Company 1 against China Company number 2, US Company number 3, and if we say it's OCF compliant, in fact, what's the certification name that we have? Well, what's the exact language? Yeah, OCF certified. You know, if you put OCF certified and advertise that, we want to make sure it works. And for many of us that have been doing this a long time in the PC and the embedded ecosystems, that is key to success. If you have a USB device, you want it to talk to a USB device, period. You don't want to think about it. You don't want incompatibilities. Now, incompatibilities always come up in new technology. This is why this is it's the third leg of our stool here of our approach, where we really want to be able to certify and guarantee to as much as possible interoperability. And that, of course, prevents fragmentation of devices that might start some of the we might take the open source in a different direction that is not quite compliant to the spec. So it's also a way to keep this open source process, which we encourage a lot of innovation, et cetera, that reference design adheres to the specifications. And so a little breakdown on the technology for OCF, and I'm probably one of the last persons to go into gory detail of all the technology, but I will say one of the things that I think sets us apart and is, I think, super important is that at a high level, we want consistent data models. And by that, we mean, you know, we would like us to work with the community and crowdsource solutions via our one iota standard, which allows defining characteristics of common day objects. For instance, you know, a light switch is a light switch. What kind of characteristics does it have? On, off, dim. You can list. What you don't want is an industry that everybody comes up with their own different schemas and own different ways to communicate to layers above and below. And one of the biggest frustrations would be if you're an application developer and you've got a home theater application, you would like to say light on, light off, and not have to worry about which bulb you have, which standard, or which one am I implementing. Wouldn't it be great if there was one definition of that object that an application developer can control that device without caring about which device it is? And with OCF, we hope that we form common data models across the industry, and it's open, crowdsourced. We're open to input on that. I think there's a whole separate section on one iota coming up. Now, in general, for the technology, and again, I'm sure we'll get into more details, we've chosen a RESTful architecture that uses JSON schemas, so very open standards, stuff that people know how to do this data models. And equally important is we want these data models to be consistent across wide industries, and that has not been the case up to now from our perspective. Next, the core framework, which for me is kind of plumbing. It's the things that are necessary to make everything work. In the operating system, this would be called middleware generally, where you just don't want to think about necessarily, you don't have to know all the details of how all the inner workings work as long as you adhere to the interfaces. But in general, we have a resource model that allows controlling resources across all these devices. Very important to have a discovery mechanism. If you plug a all-scene compatible device or a OCF device into the network, or even over time, all-scene, which will be supported in some of the new standards coming up. You want them to be discovered and onboarded. We have very, very detailed ways at which different devices can communicate their data in a very structured way, in a very secure way. That's taking care of you in this plumbing. Data management, device management, all these things we just want to take care of. And I would say
overlaid against all of the core framework is the notion of high-level security, identity, permissions. It's been built in as part of IoTivity and OIC. It's the lifeblood of what my company and other companies do, provide the most secure elements possible. And it's something that is a very active working group. And for those of you that care about security, have subject matter expertise in security, would like to influence the direction we're doing, the way to do is join, engage, and more importantly, ship products. And then lastly, as I said, it's been a desire of OCF to not be worried so much about the particular interconnect fabrics, because we know they'll change over time, and we want to be above that fray. So as long as a physical layer or a way to communicate electrically between devices adheres to our specifications, which is again another strong reason to be a spec-forward organization, they should be able to support. And we have many that are supported today. And again, if you have a particular desire where you're all in on Zigbee and you have some really fancy stuff that you've done there, please join. Open source project, you can include it, you can use the code that's already there. If there's some brand new technology out there, 60 gigahertz, you named a new thing, can also be plumbed in. The value of a spec that defines interfaces and generally what we expect of that physical layer, and an open source project that you can dive in, write code, contribute, and get things streamlined very, very quickly. Oh, and then at the end we have compliance and certification that allows you to know that your XYZ transportation network or device is going to communicate properly and be able to discover and communicate and orchestrate with other devices. As part of the organization, don't want to dig down into an org chart or anything, so I'm a member of the board of directors. There are several of us. There are opportunities that we'll describe later at different levels on what the rights are for each one. It's at OCF, the board basically drives the vision, key topics, but we're moving away from kind of the day-to-day, helping managing a bunch of the projects, etc. I'd say it's a mature organization and it's a mature board. We meet, I think, every other week. We're at face-to-faces. Everybody's investing quite a bit of time on our board. I personally spend quite a bit of time on activities for OCF because it's very important to my company and it's important to the industry. We basically have 3 steering committees that various members participate in. They can lead. There's continually asking of members, please join the steering committee, please help add the value you can to push forward. First one is an operations and management steering committee. So basically, from my viewpoint, kind of a COO operating of the company where they make sure there's good, crisp communication amongst all the various steering committees. They handle project reviews, status, where are we against schedule, etc. A lot of governance and process, and they are empowered to make their decisions at their level that go against the goals and the things that we've set out as a board. Secondly, we have a very strong business steering committee. We have some members up here. That's PR, membership, strategy. They maintain focus on that. We give reports out to the board and we discuss if we want to change priorities. Love more participants in that. As the organization is beginning to grow, we want to bring in as many other people to help out and have different ideas on how we can make this really the best 1 and free open internet IoT standard out there. Third, and equally as important, that plumbing and the technology. I mean, I've been to some of our technology steering committee events, and the amount of intelligence and subject matter expertise that our various companies have contributed to this cause is really, really impressive. And we need more. We need more opinions. But come on in. There's a lot of decisions that are still being made or in flight. This is not something where we have the spec of all specs and we're done, so there's no way to communicate or no way to contribute in big material ways. Absolutely not the truth. We're a living, breathing organization that's putting together new specs all the time, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then we have a certification working group that's very active right now in defining the cert programs. We have 3 Plug Fest coming up, so people can bring their devices and see if they to ensure they communicate with others. I believe we have one in July, September, and December, if I have it right, and we just had one in Poland recently. Again, looking for more participants there. And so the journey, just as a little historical context of how we got here, the Open Interconnect Consortium was formed in August 2014. Microsoft was not a member of that. We chose a different path because we had different things we were trying to accomplish, and then it was basically a timing of technology when it was available. So we implemented the all joint technology as part of All Seen. In fact, all 300 million devices today speak that language. The OIC basically purchased the assets of UPnP, brought in great technology, and from my perspective, it brought in some really strong, standard-oriented executives that have added to the glue and structure of what's now the OCF. And then Microsoft and a few other companies, we were all, I'm sure OIC was feeling this as well, a lot of companies out there, particularly in Taiwan. I come to Taiwan, and one of the number one things they would say as part of the IoT is, please work together so that I don't have to implement 10 different standards to make my great product connect to other great products. And so we took it upon ourselves and others, and Intel and Samsung and various people, basically to form this new organization, the OCF, particularly to try to drive some convergence in the ecosystem, kind of bringing the best of different technologies and different philosophies, how to get something done. We announced that in February, and I tell you, all of our team members that are participating in OCF, they are so busy right now working through a wide variety of things. We expect here coming up that we'll have 200 plus members. We have as many people join as possible. Right now, the technologists as part of OCF are working to get released the OCF OIC 1.1 spec, which is just cleaning up the things that have been ongoing as part of the IoTivity open source project and the specifications from OIC. But the goal here, when they're bringing people like some of us that have come from other organizations, is we're really working to do I wouldn't say a merger, but a taking of the best ideas of some different technologies, IoTivity, All Seen, and others, and putting things together to create just a better overall specification that will manifest itself into I think a stronger, maybe perhaps even more secure over time implementation. And more importantly, this is where we've investing in plumbing and infrastructure that allows compatibility to other standards. So as part of OCF 1.0, all those devices that would implement OCF 1.0 would support any All Seen, All Join enabled devices out there. It's very important for us to have continuity out there in the ecosystem for devices that have maybe shipped already or are about to ship on different standards. We want to connect to as many things as possible. Of course, having a native implementation of OCF 1.1 is the absolute best path, but we understand where we are today, where we're not quite there yet. So you have various options of how to build products today and ship them with OIC 1.1 and IoTivity, and then near the end of the year we'll get this the first instantiation of a spec that's a little more merged and have an open source project that follows on the heels of that. And so it's been rapid. I mean, the OIC's been working really hard for here a couple of years. The teams right now, they're working on the 1.1 spec and the 1.0 spec for OCF are extremely busy. Again, you're not too late. Please join now. If you have subject matter expertise and you want to have influence in the direction or the technologies that I'm invested in, we're open for business. We're open for new people to come on in. In fact, we encourage it. We were just talking earlier on how the dynamics have changed, and some of our companies have invested some people that might have a different viewpoint. And over a short period of time, with the strong collaboration that we've had in OCF today, we're getting a much better solution that will incrementally get better and better and better the more people join. So, as stated earlier, IoT is extremely important for all of us. It's one of those maybe one in a decade or maybe even longer opportunities for all of us to build new services and devices that accrete a lot of value to our companies and to consumers and to enterprises. As I mentioned earlier, Gartner says 25 billion, connected things. That's a whole lot bigger than we have today with PCs and smartphones. A lot of value is going to ride on top of that. And there's enough to share for a lot of companies, cloud providers, device providers, other OS. And then, of course, this is a big enterprise play where a lot of the money is in back-end analytics, et cetera. So everybody knows this is important. We believe one of the things that is slowing up deployment and adoption of full IoT devices is the fact that the industry is fragmented. The point of OCF is to break down those fragmentation barriers between various standards, various operating systems, various cloud options, and various industries. And I know we have bodacious plans, but that's our focus and our pillars, and we're investing, and we'll be a specification that's coming out frequently that addresses the needs. As I said, we're already working on multiple industries today. All right, somebody is going to have to guide. I have a 1 in 3 shot here. Let me see. Normally, this one? Right one. Oh, the one that's highlighted? All right, that's good. That's saying, that told me to upgrade to Windows 10, right? All right. And then lastly, a call to action. 3 simple calls to action here. 1, join. So we had not many people here that have joined OCF. Please join. You can get on the website today. You can see the documents that you would need to sign. Come on in, participate. And again, this is not an exclusion to anything else you perhaps are investing in or other standards. As said up front, we're still members and a board member, although not me, in the All-Seam Alliance. And I'm sure many of you are investing in various others. Come one, come all. We'll take you all. And the reason we'll take you all is you're going to add value to our process. And hopefully over time, it will be acknowledged overall as the one free and open standard for IoT that people can participate in. So join, join, join. Second, engagement. So we have a lot of companies that have joined OCF, and thank you for that. And we would love to see them invest more of their time and effort to steering committees, working groups, et cetera. We could use a lot more people to help us scale. The number of things that we want to do far exceeds the number of people we have to apply to it. So engage is one of the big things we want. And for those that are joining beginning, maybe you join, you kind of get the lay of the land, dive in as quick as possible. And then third, we want products shipping that implement IoTivity against 1.0 spec, 1.1 spec, OCF 1.0 spec. It's all about getting people shipped. As I said, we believe there's been a slowness to have standard-based IoT devices go to market, primarily because there's so many out there, and who do they pick? To me, we're making this easy. We have a number of companies that are participating in a standard open, free, has some compatibility with other standards. It really is a nice path and an option for all of you. And to make your devices even more compelling because of the open source aspect of our implementation and our feature reference design, you can also add your own special things to make sure that your particular device has a differentiation above others, and you share some of that just like classic open source. So join, engage, and build. And we realize, so when I was asked to speak, and I asked, so where is this at? And they said Taiwan. I go, I'm there. And I'm there because I've been in this industry a long, long time. One of the centers of innovation for devices and things, outside of even computers and everything else, is right here in Taiwan. I can't think of a better place for us to invest in, work closely with you to bring as many of you into the organization so that you can help us solve your problems, and you can help us make a much better set of specifications, a much better open source projects, and better certification programs. And to that point, I believe we have an all-members meeting here in June, I think somewhere outside of Taiwan, but that had been said a long time ago. We specifically set the next face-to-face all-members meeting here in Taipei. So hopefully many of you will join with your new badge saying OCF members, and those that are just wanting to kick the tires a little longer, we're all here during that time. Happy to talk to anybody. There'll be a lot of technology that's discussed, the progress on various working groups, etc. And I should say, don't wait until November 8th through the 11th to contact us. You can contact any of the people that are speaking today. I'm matt.perry@microsoft.com. Please send me your questions. If I can't answer it, I'll funnel it on to the right people. We're inclusive. We want to hear from you, and we want you to join, engage, and build. And with that, I want to say 谢谢 and thank you for listening, and I will turn it over to Gina.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perry. 谢谢 Dr. Perry 为我们带来这么精彩的演讲。Thank you, Dr. Perry, for outlining the structure of OCF as well as its vision. OCF is dedicated to making every device in the world talk to each other in the same language. And based on what we've learned from this presentation, we're sure this goal will be reached very soon with everyone on board. 相信刚才 Dr. Perry 所分享的主题，也让现场各位贵宾更加了解 OCF 的组织运作，还有它的愿景。相信在 OCF 对于物联网的坚持以及不断的努力之下，真正的物联网生活很快就能够实现了。